Hello, this is Sal from Sal Cues. Today I'm going to show you my taper lathe. It's a very reliable lathe. It's not a CNC lathe. And it's very manual. But again, it's very reliable. It's actually a unique lathe made by Unique that I did some modifications to. So let's get started. I have some stock already loaded and made one pass. My square stock is 1 3/8 by 1 3/8 to start. And I load it up. And let's get started turning everything on here. First I want to turn the power on. Now that turns on the control box for the spindle motor and the pump for the water supply to cool the spindle motor. Okay. First thing I do, I had this all set at the starting position, is I want to get my stock rotating. One second, I'm going to turn on the exhaust. I'll be right back. Not too loud. We're going to crank up the spindle motor now. And when we get that running at full speed, I'm going to make an adjustment. I already made one pass on this. So you can see I took some of the corners off of it. It's not completely round yet. It's not where I got to be yet. And I'll show you what I do. Alright, we're all the way up. I have a little template here that I made. I will turn this and go into the material. That it stops in between these two marks. Anywhere in between those two marks is fine. This is a rough round, and I just got to make it so it fits into my lathe. Usually 16/65, no bigger than that, and it'll fit in the lathe. It could be slightly smaller. It's fine. I can do just about any profile with that thickness or that diameter. Around. So now I'm going to loosen this nut under here with this screw, and it's going to engage in the screw that turns, that will make the carriage go to the right. Starting to cut now. Depending on what material you're using, this is cherry, so it's fairly soft. Cherry is classified as a hardwood, but it's actually a softer wood, softer hardwood. Same with like mahogany. There's some other woods too. Now red oak is a really hard, it's an open grain wood. Widely used for furniture and a lot of different things. I like it. I like it on the full cue. It's got a little bit of weight to it, especially in the front of the cue. It makes a nice balance. I use a mixture of weights high-end woods to balance my cues, to try to make it as even as a balance as possible. Black walnut. Black walnut is not so hard as oak. It's pretty hard, but it's not, it's a little harder than cherry. And I have some what is called wormy chestnut. I'm going to be incorporating this in a cue. It's a moderate weight, but it has some really nice grain characteristics. Chestnut. I also picked up a good amount of sapele mahogany, which is really nice. It's got a really nice weight to it. A little heavier than the chestnut, and maybe slightly, pretty close to the oak. So it's got a nice characteristic to it. It's got its own, like that mahogany look, that like iridescent glow that the mahogany has, which is nice. And it's a nice dark color. I don't stain my wood, so I have to find woods that have some character to them as far as design. Of course, ash, but ash doesn't have a lot of color, so I try to incorporate that in a certain place. You usually mix it with other pieces of character. So, we're on our way to a round here. I can actually speed this up a little bit. Now what I do, once I get round, I'll start to group my rounds together and use my rings, put my rings on there. Do things like, here's one that's together, it's got rings, it's all glued and everything. It hasn't been on, and I'll put it back on this lathe and then I'll do the taper. And then it'll show everything a lot better. Another one the same way. This will be the, most likely the, I don't know, maybe the back taper or the front taper. I haven't decided. Alright, so now we made our completed pass. I'll stop the rotation. I'm going to cut her off. And I'm going to go and turn the exhaust off. So, we turn this off, we're done with this. Okay. I typically turn this all the way in, and it releases the screw and allows me to go from the starting position. Now, here's what we have as a finished product. Now this piece of wood, you can see that the check marks are drying marks in wood. You can have it kiln dried and completely dried to a certain amount. There's always a little bit of moisture in wood, but as it sits around, and especially this whole shop is acclimated, and it's especially in the summertime with the air on, it gets dry. It's very dry. You'll continue to have the little check marks. Now here's one right here. I don't know if this is even usable anymore, but you have to go through the process, and this is what happens. You have not everything, we're talking wood, natural product, which moves around a lot. In other words, it opens and closes, and sometimes it just will not close and leaves what is called a check mark. So that check looks like it's pretty far down. I might be able to get a little piece out of here, but I'm not going to be able to use the whole piece. It's not going to happen. So basically that's the round that I need in order to put it together with another piece, and to make this whole thing will be a forearm. Now I may or may not put a leather wrap here, or a different type of wrap, but the wrap would probably be in this section here, and then add the butt assembly, whatever I'm going to do, and then of course the joint. Now here's some that are actually turned. These are actually turned. They're not sanded, and there's no butt work done on it, no joint. They're just turned, rough turned pieces. There's another one. There's actually red oak in the back and the rear, and cherry in the front. There's another one with cherry in the rear and black walnut in the front. Makes a nice combination. That makes a nice thing. Now this is rough. It's not sanded at all. So there's another one with black walnut in the rear. It's a really nice piece of black walnut. If you can see it, it's almost like a semi-burl. When that's finished, with the satin finish, that's really going to bring it out. And then I believe this is a cherry in the front. Doesn't have a lot of characteristics, but you got the characteristics in the back with the walnut. That's going to be a nice piece. So you go from the rounds, and then you go on the lathe. You put them together, and then you go back onto the lathe, and you do your taper. That's when all the fun starts. You do whatever you're going to put on the back. You can cut a piece, put a ring on there, put another piece on there, put a piece of ivy on there, and so forth. Now this already has some weight in it. Then you do your joint as well. So let's turn this off. And it's a very reliable machine. I did have a CNC machine, but it was too temperamental. It's connected to the computer, and you have to worry about the computer crashing on you and everything, especially with the program that they have for that. It's really, you have to have bare bones. You can't have anything on it. You can't have the security on at all. It interferes with everything. It's too temperamental. This is, at least you get used to using it. That you set it and you know what it's going to be. This you have to get a feel for it. It's a manual thing. You got to get a feel for it. Just like anybody doing anything with their hands, you have to feel for it. You feel for it. It's not automatic. Not automatic. So this is what we have for today, and I will have another video shortly. Until then, arrivederci.